Atlantic River Cruise.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Mercia. May I have your attention, please? This is an important safety announcement. In the unlikely event that there is an emergency, please listen for instructions from the captain of this vessel. Please listen to the instructions carefully, and there will be no cause for alarm. This boat is fully equipped with life-saving equipment as required by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. Each member of the crew is fully trained and will give you any necessary help. Please be guided by them. Emergency exits are clearly marked. Please take note of them now. Buoyancy aids for the use in emergency are stored in marked compartments. Please do not attempt to use them unless directed by the crew. Thank you for your attention. We hope you will enjoy your cruise with Westminster Party boats.
Can't walk, you know.
Well, good afternoon, folks. Welcome aboard the Mercia for the journey down to Greenwich. And as we left the pier now, as most of you found out, we do have a fully licensed bar downstairs, open all the time. As we're running down through the city, folks, I'm going to point out a few places. Hopefully there are some of you who understand me. But if you look on the right here, we have the London Eye. For 13 years it's been the busiest attraction in England, and last month they carried the 50 millionth traveller. Now when it opened back in year 2000 it cost you £7.50 to go around, and now it's nearly £19. Not surprisingly, it's run by EDF, the French power company. But of course if you're in London for the new year, this is where we have the biggest firework laser display in the country to welcome in 2014. Over here on our left, the building flying all our service flags, which are all at half mast of course today. This is the Ministry of Defence, and in front of the Ministry the large golden eagle, well that's the Air Force Memorial. The last building on your left, the one with all the black spires, is the Whitehall Court, which is luxury apartments, a hotel and exclusive gentlemen's clubs. It's where you find us gentlemen on a Thursday evening. Now the ships on the left, the large blue and white ones, well these are old ferry boats and now they're pubs and restaurants. But here to the right, well this is all part of South Bank, a very busy part of London today. If you look along here you can see the Christmas fair, which stretches along the riverside here. It seems to open earlier every year now, but it's quite nice along there. I was along there the other night with my kids, and it's a nice walk along. Nice to have a decent Christmas fair in London. So in front of us we have Charing Cross Railway Bridge. Now that's the green structure above us, and the main line station is to our left. Now on each side of the bridge we have also got the Golden Jubilee walkways. The footbridges are 11 years old, and they were built so you can go from Charing Cross and over to the South Bank Centre, which stretches down the river on the right. Now as we go under the bridge today, the first building on our right is called the Festival Hall, and it's the only remaining building from the Festival for Great Britain, which was held along the South Bank in 1951. All the other buildings along the right there, well they were built during the ugly concrete era of the 1960s. As you can see, they've captured the effect extremely well. Over here on our left, the stone column on the wall is Cleopatra's Needle, given to us when Nelson defeated Napoleon at the Battle of the Nile. Now also on the left, the building with the green tile roof, that's the back door to the Savoy Hotel. They've just spent over £200 million refurbishing that building. The only people who stay there now are millionaires and footballers who play away from home. So this is our longest bridge, Waterloo Bridge, opened in 1945. Now it's faced with a self-cleaning stone, so at the moment it's being washed, and if the sun came out it would bleach it back to white. So it's never officially been cleaned since the opening day. Now unfortunately they forgot about the underside of the bridge. Look into the arches inside, because that's the colour London would be if we didn't have a little drop of rain. Now under the bridge and on your left, the first building with the green dome in the middle, this is Somerset House, where we kept records of all births, marriages and deaths in England and Wales. Now it's the headquarters of the biggest criminal organisation in the country, the Inland Revenue. Up here on our right, the first building, see the new sign flashing away. This is the National Theatre, founded by the late Lord Olivier, and that was over 30 years ago. But if you look along the right, where all the people are walking along, well, just over 10 years ago, no one walked along the South Bank here because it was horrible and very dangerous late at night. Now we have a 2-mile riverside walk, and the only dangerous place is this white tower block on the right. It's where we get all our programmes on ITV. Now over on your left there, you can see the large white ship on her own called the Wellington. Now she's the livery hall of the Master Mariner. Now the stern of the ship is the red ensign flying, and in a moment behind that flag you will see there's a white line. Just see the top of it coming out of the river. Now on top of the white line, under the trees, there is a silver dragon. There's one on each side of the road, and those dragons guard the City of London. On every boundary around the city, you will find a pair of dragons warning off evil and keeping the money in. Now over here on the right, this large open space, this is the Gabriel's Wharf, which is a bit like Covent Garden. Got some nice bars and restaurants there. But further along the right, the large red building, well, this is the Oxo building. You see the name on the top? Well, that's the oldest advertisement on the River Thames. Been up there since 1931. Now the top floor is restaurants. The lower levels you have shops and galleries, and in the middle it's all apartments. The building belongs to Prince Charles, the Duchy of Cornwall estate. Now the large building next door, the one they're reconstructing again, well, for the last 25 years we've been looking at office blocks. Next year, when the work's completed, this will be a brand new 400 bedroom luxury hotel. Over on your left there, the black and white ship, well, she's one of the old training ships from the Naval Reserve, now used as a function suite. You can hire it out for parties. But also on your left you can see a little red building, looks like a church in the Gothic style. Zion College is where we used to keep copies of every Bible ever printed in the English language. Now the white building next door, which is being cleaned up, the one with the green roof, that's the original City of London School. Winston Churchill, Clement Attlee, Lloyd George, the old wartime prime ministers, that's where their education began. I'm not sure where they educate prime ministers today, but there are some strange schools around. Now on the left, the last building, the lovely big curved one, well, that's the headquarters of the biggest manufacturing company in Europe, and they're called Lever Brothers, or the Unilever Company.
Why did you stop recording?
I didn't.
Now this is the
I was going to move it.
This is the Blackfriars Road Bridge. Now this bridge was opened by Queen Victoria, and if you look on the front of the bridge, at the bridge supports, you'll see they've designed them to look like the pulpits of a church. Now the reason for that, on the left, many years ago, was a friary. The friars wore a black habit, hence the name for this part of London, Blackfriars. But if you look at those pedestals, look at the top of the one on the right, can you see the carvings of all the swans? Well, look on all the other pedestals, and they're all the birds we have along the banks of the river. Now there are 3 bridges here, so we go under the first one. Each side we have red columns, and that's all that remains of Brunel's first railway bridge, the London, Chatham and Dover Rail crossed the river in 1864. But the last bridge, this new one, well, we've spent 4 years turning a little railway bridge into a brand new station. This is the new Blackfriars, north and south. And it's the first time ever we've had a railway station actually built right over the Thames. Now along the right, the building with the tall chimney is called Tate Modern, a wonderful place to go if you understand modern art. If you don't understand modern art, I can recommend that pub on the right. Now here to our left we have a real work of art. This is St Paul's Cathedral. Look right on top of the dome, there is a viewing gallery. Now to reach there you'll have to wait until Monday, and then they'll let you climb 528 stone stairs for the best view round the old city. Now the large red building on our left, this is the new City of London School. This is where they say we are now training future Prime Ministers and Members of Parliament. So it has been an approved school for many years. Now this is the Millennium Bridge. 9 years ago when it opened it got the nickname the Wibbly Wobbly. But it doesn't wibble or wobble now. All it does for us, if you look to the left, where it goes between the buildings, now it just ruins the best view we had of St Paul's on the river. But as we go beneath the bridge, if you look along the right, behind all the bright red banners, you can see William Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. And that's the first timber-framed, thatched-roof theatre allowed in London since the Great Fire. What you must try and remember, on your left was the city. This is where men made their fortunes. But there was no entertainment allowed within the city limits. So once they had their big pocketfuls of cash, they used to come over the river to Bankside and Southwark on the right. So on the right you would have seen bear baiting, cockfighting, circuses, taverns, brothels, theatres, and today we've even got a Pizza Express. So in front of us is Southwark Bridge, and as you can see, it lives up to its name as the least used bridge in London. And that's because most people can't even find it. To the right of the bridge on the skyline is the tallest building in Europe, the Shard. As you look up the top, the open panels up there, well, they're the viewing galleries, and that will cost you at least £24 to go up. But if you don't book in advance, it will cost you £30 instead. It's the most expensive viewing gallery in the world. So this is the Cannon Street Railway Bridge with the station on your left. If you look to the right of the bridge, tucked in the corner, you can see the old Anchor Tavern, which has been there nearly 500 years now. Now, William Shakespeare, he used to rent out the small attic room in the corner. That was his changing room, because the original Globe Theatre stood behind the tavern in Park Street. Even today, it's still one of the busiest pubs along the river. Now as we go under the bridge, over to the right, you can see a small replica ship called the Golden Hind. Now she was built over 30 years ago to commemorate the travels of Francis Drake. It's a wonderful place to take your children. Not only can they play on the ship, now you can even hire it for their birthday parties. Behind the ship is a place we call the Borough Market, which is a very fashionable part of London today. But have a look to the left, folks. Look at the London skyline. See that massive white building? Got the cranes on top. They're building 4 restaurants and a garden up there now. Behind it is the Gherkin, the black rocket. And the ugly grey thing next door, well, that's the tallest building in the city, and that's got the nickname as the cheese grater. But I can assure you, there are at least another 3 uglier buildings going up at the moment. So this is the London Bridge, 40 years old now, this old bridge. It replaced London Bridge that was 160 years old. So the old London Bridge is in America, probably one of the oldest things they've got. Now over here on our left, if you look between the buildings, you'll see a little church of St Magnus. And if you look behind the church in the left corner, you can see the tallest candle in the world. It's called the Monument, commemorates the Great Fire. But back here to the right, folks, all the buildings on this right hand side, down to the next bridge, that includes the Shard, everything along the right belongs to the Qatari royal family. Now over here on our left, we have a little yellow building with goldfish weather vane on the roof. This was Billingsgate Fish Market. The only fish there now are the weather vane at the top. Look over the top of Billingsgate, see the white building, got the black screen on the top? Well, that's to stop the sun bouncing off and burning the paintwork off the cars parked outside. Now the elegant building behind the trees on our left is the Custom House, and that's the main customs office of this country. But in front of us on the right we have HMS Belfast. The Belfast has been here now for 40 years as a museum. She has 9 decks that are open, so you start your tour in the engine room, you finish at the top where you see that big old radar scanner. In her service life she was on the convoys to Russia, the Normandy landings and in the Korean War. Now a museum open every day, very popular with the kids. You can lose them on there for at least a couple of hours. Now as we come past the Belfast, if you look along the right here, you'll see a building that we call the Power Rangers crash helmet. This big glass bubble is the headquarters for the Mayor of London, a man called Boris Johnson. Now this is where Boris is going to sit for another 2 years and dream up even more wonderful schemes to spend our money. Over on your left we have the tower. Look above the trees, you see the gold crowns? That means it's still a royal palace. In its 1,000 years it's been a palace, fortress, prison, zoo, royal mint and a place of execution. Look along the water level there, you'll see the words entry to the Traitors Gate. Now we've always called that the first one-way street in London, because when you go in, you never came out. So this is the last bridge in London, the Old Tower Bridge. Up the top we have glassed-in walkways which are viewing galleries and a museum. The lower bascules in the centre, they lift up to let the ships in and out of the pool. Each half is 1,100 tonne. Takes 90 seconds to lift them up. Now it is the only bridge of its kind in the world, and it's 119 years old. And as we go under the bridge today, you've just broken a record of your own. You've now passed through the city, the square mile, faster than anyone in a car, a bus or a taxi. So we leave the ancient city behind us. This is now the docks. If you have a look on the left, you can see Tower Hotel. Just past the hotel is the entry of St Catherine Dock. And if you look through those bridges there that are lifted up, you can see all the private yachts moored up there for the winter. One of the first enclosed docks to be built on the banks of the Thames. But here to our right, these are all the old Victorian warehouses which used to hold goods from across the world, and now they hold people instead. If you look along the right here as we pass the passenger boats, you'll see a gap between the buildings. A small one-bedroom apartment round the back here will still cost you today over £500,000. If you like a penthouse up on there on the top floor, well, they're over £3 million each. And if you can afford to live there, you can afford to visit all the bars and the restaurants that you see on the ground floor.
Are you thirsty?
Now if you look along the right here, folks, you'll see a blue and white warehouse on the corner. Now there's a little opening there called Dockhead. Now the reason we point it out is it gives you a good idea of what the river looked like when it was actually a working river. So as you look up the dock today, you will see the warehouses running inland, and there's the cranes hanging on the front waiting to unload the cargo, which will never come back. So along the right, folks, you can see how the river's changing now. We have people actually living on the river. You see all the little barges and the floating gardens. People have been buying up these Dutch barges and converting them into floating homes. Some of them are extremely nice, and it's not a bad way to live as long as you don't mind the front room bouncing up and down a bit. On your left here we have a part of London known as Wapping and Whitechapel. This is where you would have found the victims of a man called Jack the Ripper, the man who was never caught. But just to show you how crazy prices are, look on your left. You see the last glass building, it's got round penthouses. Well, the little penthouse that's on the top, that is the master bedroom. The level underneath it with a private running track round the outside, well, that's their front room. Now last year that apartment was up for sale for just £8 million. As you can see, it costs a fortune to live in a goldfish bowl in London. Well, along to our left we have a group of very old buildings. One is called Oliver's Wharf, and if you look down the left side of that old building as we're going past, in a moment you'll see one of our famous old pubs. Now the pub's been there well over 400 years. It's called the Town of Ramsgate. Now in the late 1600s we had big problems out here with piracy and smuggling. So the government set up an Admiralty court in the docks in that little pub. The man in charge was Judge Jeffreys, and if you were captured you were taken in front of the judge. He would sentence you to the Grace of Wapping. You were taken out of the pub at low water, which was about 5 hours ago. Then they walked you along the riverbed to that little red building on your left. It's got the letter E up on the roof. Now that was Execution Dock. Pirates were chained to the riverbed for 36 hours. If they survived, they were innocent men. Unfortunately, 387 guilty pirates all drowned in the river. Now look between the boats on the right, there's a brown pub, and that's the Angel. After Judge Jeffreys sentenced those men, he was ferried across the river, and he would sit on the balcony there with his friends, watching the pirates drowning on the other side. It's what we used to call the good old days. Now we've got health and safety. So along the left here, folks, if you look past the old blue pier, you'll see another little pub there called Captain Kidd. Now the pub isn't famous, but Captain Kidd, he was the last man executed at Wapping in 1701. If you go to the pub, on the back of the menu is his life history. And believe you me, it's better reading than the front of the menu. Now ahead of us on the right, we have a chimney, and underneath they've written Thames Tunnel Mill. Now we are going over the first tunnel built underwater in the world. In 1843, Brunel opened the Thames Tunnel. Now on the 22nd of this month, you can buy a ticket to walk underneath the Thames through Brunel's tunnel. It's only done a couple of times a year. But if you keep looking on the right between the buildings, see the little white pub? Look at the weather vane at the top. See, it's a replica of the ship, and the name of the ship, the Mayflower. This is where they built the pilgrim ship, the Mayflower. She left London in 1620, went round to Plymouth to pick up the pilgrims, and when she crossed the Atlantic, she had 142 people on board. The Mayflower was smaller than the boat you're travelling on today. Well, if you look along the left here, you can see how the river used to look. See all these massive riverside warehouses? Now there was no riverside access here for the general public. This was a working river. But if you look at the old buildings on the left, you can still see some of the original names. There is another word at the top, the word wharf, and that word means warehouse at riverfront. You see the small green one in the middle? Well, we used to put barges right underneath the cranes to unload them, but when the larger ships came, we had to build jetties along the front. Now also, while you're looking on the left, you can see another white pub, and that is the oldest pub on the river in central London. When it opened in 1520, it used to be called the Devil's Punch Bowl in a shanty town known as Shadwell, an extremely dangerous part of London. Well, today it's called the Prospect of Whitby, and it's also moved into Wapping. And the only pirate you'll find in there today is the manager. Well, if you look around, you can see how it's all changed now. We haven't got anywhere to work, but we've certainly got lots of places to live. But there is a strange feature, I don't know if it's only on this river. Look at all the buildings on the right. You might notice that lots of the people who own the riverside apartments, they don't bother with curtains or blinds because they don't think there's anyone out here at night. Well, you'll be amazed what we see out here on a Saturday night. The best job in London. Well, folks, we're not far off high water here now. Now, this tide has been coming in for the last 5.5 hours. It's risen over 7 metres in height. Now the tide will go out of London for 7 hours. So one tidal cycle here is roughly 12.5 hours. Now, that means we have 2 tides every day. And of course, where we are here, we're over 40 miles inland from the estuary. So as you can imagine, that's a lot of water in and out of London twice a day. Now, if you look along the right, you've got this big old warehouse. And as you see, built right against the water's edge. Look to the far end where the trees are. There's a gap in the buildings. Now look through the gap and there's a pub across the road. But measure the water level against the pub. You see now the whole of that ground floor would flood out if the Thames burst its banks today. And today is only a normal tide. Now a couple of weeks ago, we had to shut the flood barrier down at Woolwich, otherwise London would not be here today. It'd have gone back to its old name, Londinium, and be flooded out. So over there on your left, there's a big hole in the building. See the Black Bridge, Limehouse Marina. Look over the bridge. Look to the left of the glass building. See the church? Got a little red man on the roof. He's guarding the canals of England. Now, if we had a canal boat, we could take you in there and we could take you right through the middle of this country. Up to Manchester, Liverpool, on canals that we built over 200 years ago by hand. After the Second World War, we just flew. Left, we have the Isle of Dogs. If you look at a map, This is a massive island. Used to be called the East, the West and the Millwall Dock. Well, now you can see there are no docks. It's just massive blocks of apartments as far as you can see. But one last little place for you. Have a look on the right here. This is quite a rare sight on our river, a bit of green open space. Now look slightly back on the right, and hopefully if it's not too misty, you'll see the Shard sitting up there on top of London Bridge Station. You can't see the top of it, unfortunately. Now, underneath the viewing galleries of the Shard, you will find penthouses for sale. And the starting price for a penthouse in the Shard today is only £20 million. For that money, you get to live on top of London Bridge Station. Well, folks, as you can see, if you look around you, all we have now are overpriced apartments on the river. As I said earlier, nowhere to work, but lots of places to live. Now I'm going to finish the guide up for a couple of minutes, because you'll soon get fed up of me telling you how much these places cost. But as I'm finishing here, I would like to point out a little thing about our guide, as we do try to explain. The reason we have a little chat with you as we come down the river is because we don't see the point of people coming down the Thames if you haven't got a clue what you're passing by. If you want to go on a mystery tour, you're better off going on a clipper, because they don't talk you on there at all. Now what we do on these little boats, if anyone has enjoyed the guide, if anyone has understood me, and you would like to show appreciation, well, you can do so very shortly. In a moment, I'm going to pass amongst you with our captain's rather large top hat, and if you would like to show appreciation for my few words, that's your chance to do it if you so wish. I hope you've enjoyed your trip so far. If you've got any questions, don't be afraid to ask away.
No, you can play with coins at home with the bank.
When he comes by,
No, we're gonna give it to the guy. We're talking so nicely.
maybe William can give it to the cat.
Use your camera phone.
Thank you, ladies. All the messages ready? Yes. On the title section.
Oh, you want to sit here?
But that's just in the title section. When you go above 10, you've got a lot more. In the title section, they read it as 30.
Because we was
Probably not fall asleep.
Well, see, the problem is they don't count railway bridges. But if you bump into one, they're very heavy, yeah.
So there's even on title bit, there's
At the moment, because they want to build, where it's the southbound pass, where the television centre is, they want to build a new one across there, the Golden Bridge, which is a football stadium, so you can walk from Southbank up to Covent Garden.
So there's more than 7 then.
Oh yeah. Well, it's telling me there are 7 railway bridges. Because that would be his get out.
That'd be the get out, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you wanted to get in?
And cheers, mate. All the best.
Can
Thank
we
you.
have a picture?
Yeah, of course I can. Of me?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
We run a travel blog, so
Oh.
we've been recording.
Oh.
What's your name?
Yeah.
Ian.
Put the
Thank you
top
very much.
hat on. Put the top hat on.
Hold on, mate. Fit mine.
Oh, I just gave it to the nice man. I have another coin though. Okay, you can have one pound. You have 2 50p pieces. Play with them in your car.
Alright, everybody's leaving their notes.
The big ones.
Where do I look for data usage? Where do I look for data usage?
Yeah, you use about half as much as I have.
I just cannot use my phone unless absolutely necessary.
So, I used a ton last night because in the bathroom there's no Wi-Fi in the bathroom, and my magazine was in the ladies' bathroom. Post. I see the Cuddy Star.
There's no Wi-Fi in the front of the flat at all.
Where did it go? Oh.
You should probably use this code on the Cuddy Sards.
Where did it go? Huh? Will you put his coat on him? I gotta pee.
Is that going upstairs? Where did it go? Where did the coin go?
Well, folks, if you look along the right here, you can see all these new glass buildings they're unwrapping. They've actually built 1,000 apartments on the right-hand side there. And if you look down the river ahead of us, where the old power station is, to the left of it, you see all the new white buildings down there. They're building 2,000 apartments down there. So as you see, we've got at least 3,000 millionaires going to move into Greenwich in the next couple of months. Now look ahead of us on the right, the lovely old Cutty Sark, which is the last China tea clipper in the world. She was rebuilt after a fire and now she sits on top of the dry dock. So even on a horrible day like today, you can walk right underneath the ship and you'll be perfectly dry in the new glass enclosure. Look to the right of the Cutty Sark on the hilltops. There's a green dome up there in the mist and that's the observatory. On top of the observatory we have a black T-piece and a red ball underneath. At 2 minutes to 1 the ball rises up and when it drops down that is 1 o'clock. Greenwich Mean Time is the oldest time signal in the world. Now if you look at the Cuddy Sark, just behind those buildings there is the Greenwich Marketplace with all the shops, bars, restaurants. At the far end of the pier, those lovely white buildings, these were naval colleges, now the University of Greenwich. Now if you walk inland, behind those buildings, you will find the Maritime Museum and the Queen's House, which are all open today, and they've actually started a new exhibition here now, Turner and the Sea, the paintings of Turner's large ships and landscapes to do with the sea. So, as you see, we're turning around now, and we're going to go alongside the pier. So, if you are leaving us, please make sure you have all your personal belongings. Now, the boat's returning today, as you all got on at Westminster, you'll have your brochure. On the front page, they've stapled a white ticket, and that's the times of the boat's returning. So, we'll be leaving here at 1:20. After us, it's every 40 minutes until 4 o'clock. And then the last boat tonight is 4:30. Now, I hope you've enjoyed your trip with us. But as I say, if you're leaving us, make sure you have your belongings. And of course, be careful stepping from the boat to the pier. And once again, thank you all very much for your kind appreciation of our little talk.